with Ma'ruf and Munkar. Obviously, there's some sort of association. I don't have anything further to say now.
Okay. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله على آله وصحبه ومن والاه. I mean, it's a really very fundamental question of why, because first of all, because this is the defining mission of believers. So we should really invest time and efforts to understand it very well, because Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, enjoining that which is good, or regardless of how you translate it, and forbidding or working against anything that is bad, that's at the heart of religion. This is the essence of Islam that was lost over the centuries, mostly by design, not by coincidence. And then other parts of Islam which are not essential were blown out of proportion, also by design. So because it is at the heart of the religion, this mission and the ultimate purposes of Islam should take the bulk of our efforts when it comes to ijtihad, using basically trying to contextualize Islam, because Islam is essentially a mission with ultimate purposes. It's a faith, it's a relationship between you and God that will translate, it's a dedication, devotion, that will translate into fulfilling his purpose, and that's your mission. And these are the ultimate goals of Islam. So if you want to define, the best definition I see for Islam is this triangle of faith or belief in Allah that translates into dedication to a mission and to ultimate purposes, or we can define it as a mission with the ultimate purposes. Risala bi maqasid, 2 words. Because of that requires again, should take the bulk of our efforts, and it did not. Yeah, you go to Islamic library nowadays, you will find lots of books about how to perform wudu, how to perform I mean, most of rituals, fiqh, halal and haram, jurisprudence, etc. But you hardly need to make a lot of effort to find any book about the mission of Islam or the goals of Islam. Having said that, it's amazing that Islam calls it Amr bil Ma'ruf. There is in Islam calling to the good. وَلْتَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. They call to everything that is beneficial for people in this life and in the hereafter. But there is also this advocating what is Ma'ruf, is basically the what the society, it's a social norm, you can call it. If you want to really have an accurate definition of Ma'ruf, we will say it is the social norm that does not contradict the teachings of Islam. So something that people accept in the society, and it's something that is part of their habits, part of their traditions, part of their culture. If it does not contradict any of the pillars or the teachings of Islam, Islam will adopt it, because Islam is not a culture. Islam is a guidance that is compatible with every culture. So it is Muslims who merged the religion with the culture, and they're trying to sell it as a package, and that's very bad. Anytime you move from one place to another, you have to decouple the religion from the culture and only promote the religion. Don't promote the culture, because if you do that, first of all, you're not going to be successful. And second, you will make Islam a foreign religion. And that's what, unfortunately, some people are doing here. When an American embraces Islam, you find them trying to change even their habits. They don't have to. Changing the way they dress, changing, you don't have to. These cultural. You don't have to change your culture if it is not, it does not contradict the teachings of religion. So Amr bil Ma'ruf is anything. Usually there is very rarely, if ever, the masses will accept something that is bad and make it a norm. It can happen. It can happen by design. It can happen by people who have an agenda. They advocate it, they push it through the society, and they can take something that is abnormal and they try to make it normal. But it's not very common. It's not easy. Usually what is the human nature is good and pure usually, and does not, no matter what you do, always what the people or the masses, the critical mass, will not agree or adopt something that is bad. So, and that's why, and I really like the schools of thoughts in Islam who adopt the social norm as a source of legislation. Masadir Tashri'a. They talk about the Quran, they talk about the tradition of the Prophet, but also they talk about al-urf. They call it al-urf or ma'ruf, which is the social norm. So the social norm, because Islam is not, Quran is not a book of law. It's a guidance. And therefore, if it goes to a place and they find in that place there are some good norms, there are some social norms, there are some practice, there are some habits, there are some elements in that culture that are healthy, Islam will embrace them. It doesn't have to tell you in Quran, you have to exercise, or you have to eat healthy, or you have to wake up early, or you have to sleep. It doesn't have to tell you, because it is not a book of medicine. It is not a book of science, and it is not a book of law that has details of everything. So that's been part of the flexibility of Islam, and what makes it relevant for all places and all times is this adoption of al-urf, which is the good social norm, and rejecting what the society rejects. Again, if it is consistent with the teachings of Islam. And also there is another thing. This one, you don't hear it, because this is, I think, only in Al-Urf, I think only Imam Malik, if I'm not mistaken. It's not very common. Some schools of thoughts do not even recognize. There is also what they call Masalah al-Mursalah. Masalah al-Mursalah, if you want to translate it, it's the greater good. It's also, in some schools of thoughts, it's a source of legislation. And there are some contemporary scholars who really were brave enough and have the courage to say that if the greater good is not in agreement, or does not in agreement with the verse in Quran, or with the text, it's the greater good that should take priority. Like if applying a text in the Quran does not serve the greater good, in a certain context, al-maslaha before, or the greater good is before the text. It's an amazing, and these are mainstream scholars, they are not even marginal yet. So these things, unfortunately, because of the dominance of the Salafi school, they don't like these things, because they don't want any thinking. They want to just rely on the tradition and the heritage, the books of heritage. So they disappeared from our, you don't see any focus on them. So you hear always the Quran and the Sunnah, and sometimes they call ijma', which is consensus, which I've never seen all Muslims or all scholars gathered in a place and agreed on anything. It does not exist yet. So a lot need to be revisited and reviewed and reevaluated. So Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, you come to a place, you find that there are some healthy social norms. People have some practices, some habits, some elements in their culture that are healthy, very compatible with the teachings of Islam. You should promote them or accept them, or I mean, you don't, because again, Islam is not the culture. Islam is a religion that need to be contextualized and therefore needs to be meshed with the existing culture. And in doing so, it adopts all the good social norms in that society. And if you think about it, Islam gives you the best of both worlds. There is calling to that which is good. There is standing out firmly for justice. كونوا قوامين بالقسط ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير. And there is أمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. So you combine all of them, standing out for justice, calling to that which is good, anything that is beneficial for people in this life or in the hereafter. You should try to acquire it and should try to share it and spread it, whether it is about environment, whether it is about spousal relationship, whether it is about social justice, whether it is about parenting, whether it is about health, any health awareness or education, anything that is useful for you and for people in this life and the thereafter. As a Muslim, the essence of your religion and your faith is to acquire that knowledge, to apply it, to share it. When you apply it, it makes you a better person. To share it, to help others becoming better people, and to spread it and advocate it in the society. That's what, unfortunately, many Muslims, they think this is either not necessarily optional or not needed, and they focus almost exclusively on the rituals and on the jurisprudence, halal and haram, and that's unfortunately the Salafi school. Does not emphasize character a lot, does not emphasize contribution to the greater good, does not emphasize self-development, does not emphasize, even though this is the heart of the religion.
Yeah, I mean, if I can add,
Sure.
this will explain the state of isolation, or I mean, it's like a living alone or away from the life or the community, or maybe the modern time. So sometimes you feel some Muslims, or maybe most of the Ummah, living in the history. They still have the same, they think Islam is a certain type of dress, certain type of food. I hear some of them, they don't eat like on a table. I mean, maybe it's a minor number, but not that much. But because they think this is bid'ah, or this is haram, or this is against the core ideas of Islam. But this is wrong. I mean, the ma'ruf or munkar, or the understanding of Islam as a maqasid, or mission with maqasid, makes it more flexible. It can accept the changing of life, and that's a rule of life. I mean, life doesn't stay in a certain frame of time. No, it keeps changing, and with that change, you have new ideas, and new norm, and new things, and people are life. It's not just a time. There is a lot of new ideas. People actually, with modernization, with science, with technology, their behavior sometimes change. You don't see today wars every day. You see it happens, but it's not like every day, and it's not the way tribes like or entities. I mean, at that time, entities was tribes or maybe even states, but these states used to be similar tribe-alike states,
Mhm.
and the normal relationship between them is almost fight. If you are not strong enough, other will come and I mean, attack you. So you have to be always ready to fight and ready to attack others. But these days, norm changed. I mean, barely you see countries fighting. I mean, it happens, but it's not every country. At one time, it was every country has to fight if you go to the history. So I mean, yes, changing life, society change. It brings different ideas, different norm, and this rule of changing. If we don't accept that, we don't understand that, we will end up at the edge of life and will be isolated, and nobody will care about you, or you cannot even communicate with new societies or new country. I mean, new ideas or communities.
That's true. It's living in isolation, living in history. Do not get engaged. Um, do not reach out. Have complicated relationship with people rather than the simple, that these are they are your fellow humans. You belong to the same family. It happens to be a very large family, but it has only a pair of parents, male and female. And these, they are your fellow citizens, which means they are on board of the same ship, like yourself. And they are your fellow neighbors, or they are neighbors, and they're your colleagues, and maybe your children go to the same school and the same city. So the matters of the city are important for both of you. There are so many commonalities. And then we throw all of this and we divide the world into Muslims and non-Muslim, and twist Islamic concepts of wala or loyalty, etc., and mess them up and confuse people unnecessarily. So that's you can always find that some misconception at the root of these problems. If you ask nowadays any Muslim, whether practicing or non-practicing, except maybe the few, ask them, and you can try it. What is the profile? What are the characteristics of a good believer or good Muslim? What are they? Most people will mention to you they pray in the mosque, they fast a lot, they may also talk about their appearances, the way they look, etc. But you don't find, and somebody will tell you that this is a good Muslim because of their contribution to the greater good, because of what they're doing to the society and to the neighborhood and to their city. No, even the character will not, probably may not be mentioned as a characteristic or criterion for a good Muslim, that this guy has a work ethics. You don't need that. Or this person is honest, is truthful, is compassionate, you don't hear that. Why? Because again, that's the version of Islam that came to us, emphasizes only rituals and laws or jurisprudence. And in majority of Muslims, they are under the impression that the more rigid you are, the more devoted believer you are. And that's not true. So that's the profile. If you tell anybody, compare two people, someone who is involved in society, involved in charity, involved civically engaged, involved in issues that affect the whole societies, and maybe does not come as frequent to the mosque. And then next to that, somebody who is always in the mosque but does not get involved in anything and does not interact with anybody. They will tell you the second one is more pious, is more religious. To the point that now it is very much accepted that you can be a good Muslim and at the same time you are passive and disengaged and isolated, and maybe you are a better Muslim because of these. You are a better Muslim. We turn things upside down. You are a better Muslim because you don't interact with people, and because you don't get engaged in anything, and you are living in isolation, so you are good, more devoted Muslim. Even though the texts are clear that there is a hadith in which Jibril, the angel, was sent to punish the town, and he found somebody who's praying day and night and did not know what to do, and Allah told him to even start with that person, because this person did not care about what's happening around him. فإن وجهه لم يتمعر في قط. He has seen injustice, he has seen oppression, he has seen all kinds of munkar, or things that are, and then he did not care. He just kept praying. Even though this is very clear hadith, and the hadith, the other saying of the Prophet, there is a ship and people on board of a ship, and then there are people in the upper deck and people in the lower deck, and the people in the lower deck, every time they need water, they said, why we keep bothering them? Let's dig a hole in the ship. And the Prophet, in an amazing way, said that if they let them do it, everybody will sink. That's Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. That if you think that because you are isolated and therefore you are in the upper deck, and whatever happened in the society is not going to affect you, you're fooling yourself. You're fooling yourself. Everything that is there in the society, it is there in our community. Make no mistake about it. Yes, we can choose to be in denial, but that's not going to help. And the right thing to do, the smart thing to do, and the right thing to do, the Islamically right thing to do, yes, you need to protect your family first, but also you need to go out and try to work against that phenomena, and not say, I'm going to build a wall so that I can protect my family. You cannot do that. You cannot do that because it is silly, never worked and never will. There is no wall that is thick enough to isolate your community or your family or your children from the society. It's not going to happen. So it is silly and very inefficient, but also it's wrong Islamically. It is wrong. You can't. The defining mission of believers is to go out and try to make things better, to make people, help people becoming better people, and work with them for the greater good. So this idea of passive Muslim does not exist. These are contradiction. When you say passive, cannot be Muslim. When you say Muslim, cannot be passive. You cannot combine them, because Muslim means committed to a mission. That mission will eliminate the option of isolation or disengagement.
I mean, that's true. I mean, if you look at the history of the first generation in the Muslim world, I mean, in Mecca, when Bilal ibn Rabah, he used to be a slave. He has no power. He powerless. He has nothing. When he became Muslim, he became one of the leaders of the community. Not him only. I mean, everybody else. When they used to be just maybe a shepherd in the desert and doing nothing, but when he became a Muslim, he transformed from a very passive or has nothing to do with life to somebody who cares about everybody, the common good, and to improve people's life. So I mean, that's from our history, and we can approve it. It's not something we created or something contemporary understanding. No, this is original thing. But sometimes I don't know where it came. The idea of like the best Muslim is the one with a certain look and who comes to the masjid 5 times. But when you ask him for come to discuss this politician about some rules or something that's related to our life, he will say, no, I have nothing to do with politics.
Yeah.
And that's existing here. I mean, you can see that everywhere here.
Very common.
Yeah, it's very common. And this is the passive Muslim is not the best. It's not the model of Muslims. I mean, it's maybe helps certain regimes and back home. People, I mean, the authorities like these people, like them to be okay. They don't interfere with politics. They don't change anything they see. So that's what the great model for them, the great system that works with the dictatorship. And actually, dictatorship maybe trying to, from what I'm saying, I found maybe the root cause of that is dictatorship. Maybe they encourage this type of Muslims or model because they cannot, they don't care to correct the mishap or the improper actions that like try to change Islamic system. Trying to say Islamic maqasid or Islamic main goals of to the life.
That's true. It's a dictatorship and the complacency of scholars who accepted that terrible deal to accept dictatorship, and in return, they will be given free hand to talk about parts of Islam that the dictators don't mind. They don't mind about. So go tell people about evolution, tell people about how they correct their prayers when they make a mistake, tell them about how they perform ghusl or and shower and how this, how that, but don't come close. So it's a very bad deal. That because people were so eager for law and order and stability, they accepted it at any price. And when they gave them that margin to promote the acceptable version of Islam, the version that is stripped from its essence, the version of Islam that will soothe people, will make them even more obedient to the dictators, they accepted that deal, and that we are still paying the price for that.
Please, brothers, if you have any questions or thoughts or ideas, please. We need to enrich the discussion here. I think we'll just add another idea. If you look at the scholars who used to be active in life and ask the governors or the leaders to abide by Islam and this is wrong, this is right, were maybe punished or maybe avoided or sometimes isolated or put in jail or sometimes killed in our history. If you look at Abu Hanifa was, some saying said he was poisoned because he rejected to be a tool in that regime, in the dictatorship regime. And not only him, lots of scholars in our history, but other scholars were maybe encouraged to to spread their ideas because it has nothing to do with life or life, but not related to to correct some real ideas that's not in Islam or the changing in the core of Islam. Brother Jalal, do you have any idea, any comment or any questions? Or Brother Abu Abdullah?
No, I don't.
Brother Hugh, I think you are here today. Yes, Brother Hugh.
Yes, I'm here today. I think the thing that strikes me the most is the the idea, and this is so Dr. Ganucci was talking about, it's really the behavior of the individual that indicates their faith. We see this in the Christian world too, the idea that we have many, many different beliefs about God, about Jesus, and so forth. But really, the thing that unites us as Christians, and I would suggest unites us with our Muslim brothers and sisters, is our behavior. Do we really love our neighbors? Do we really love God? So that's really what struck me about this conversation today.
Yeah, I mean, this is a religion that starts in your heart, and it is between you and God, but it has to translate into what you're doing in your interaction with people. And there is a saying in Islam, it's not a saying of the Prophet, but many people think so because it was mentioned and many times, is that the ad-dinu al-mu'amala, your religion is indicated by your behavior and your interaction with people, not about what you do between you and God. That's the process, and that's the other is the product. So you can spend the whole night praying, but if the next morning your work ethics are not good, you are not honest, you are not compassionate, you don't help those who need help, you are not you make no contribution to the greater good, etc., then you are it's useless. It's like charging a cell phone but not using it, or filling the car and don't use it. That's what's the point. So it has to translate, and that's what is missing nowadays, and that's why people have that profile of how people look and how much worship they do, and these are the best believers. That's not true. It's what transpires, I mean, in your action, in your behavior, in your interaction. That's the best indication of faith, and we need to change that in the minds of Muslims, that it's not by the appearance and it's not by the intensity of worship. It's because when you dedicate yourself to God, He does not need anything from you. He wants you to dedicate yourself to serve His people, to serve people. So basically serving the Creator by serving the creation. That's the best way. It's doesn't need anything from you. He wants you to, you want to seek, you want to be devoted to Him, then you should be devoted to His cause and to His purpose, which is to make this world a better place, to eliminate poverty, to eliminate any injustice, to eliminate from this world, and to stand out firmly for justice and for freedom of everybody, for human dignity, for peace, for security, for prosperity. These are the purposes. You work, you dedicate yourself and your life to God. He wants you to do this and execute His plan. And we need to really adopt this much better idea, and the right idea of, first of all, we don't need to be evaluating others or judging, but we're talking about the profile that you need to try to match, or the profile of the good believer should be this one, not the one that is based on appearances or on rituals. Nowadays, a lot of Muslims, when they see someone wearing that what they call a turban, amama, they think that this person is closer to the Prophet because that's how the Prophet was dressing. Has nothing to do. I mean, everybody at that time was wearing that, so it has no indication. They see someone whose beard is long, they think that, oh, this is more Sunnah. He's following the Sunnah strictly. That's not true. You want to be like the Prophet, you should be a role model. You should be mercy to people around you. You should be in the business of learning and teaching. You should be always try to be a better version of yourself and mentoring people around you or uplift them. That's how the Prophet was described in Quran. It's not about how he looks or how he dresses.
I mean, that's true. I mean, of course, and we know the hadith where a visitor came to see Sayyidina Muhammad, the Prophet, and he asked, which one of you? That tells you that there is nothing special for him. He wasn't distinguished by certain turban or certain dress or
That's
longer
true.
or bigger or something.
That's
So
true.
it's related to norm or to ma'ruf or something. So at that time, people used to have this certain dress that suits their environment or their culture.
Culture. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to different tribe, maybe on the Persia or Roma or Romans or something, you might see them have different type of head cover or without head cover or with different kind of dresses or something. So
Absolutely.
that has nothing to do. It's just it's historical thing. I mean, it's something related to that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, and but the issue here, if you go to most of the masajid today during Jum'ah, most of the time you will see somebody with a long dress and something on their head because they think this is the way better Muslim should be.
Uh-huh.
And every time I go there, I start laughing because they think even this kind of collar they don't have. It's different type because they think that's the Islamic way, but that's not the Islamic way. It's but most of the Muslim fell in that trap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brother Muhammad, I think you are with us today. Usually you have great questions.
Can I change the subject, Dr.
Yeah,
Suhail,
Ramadan.
and
Okay.
we can talk a little bit about the Middle East? It's everybody in the Arab world right now. The majority of the Arab, they are happy. Why they are happy? Because Israeli lost 660 people. The Arab lost 375 people. But what is the outcome? What will happen later? Nobody cares. I think this war, it's meaningless war. This, in my view, it doesn't make sense because in the end of it, we know the result. Why we are doing something stuff. This is what you say all the time. We have to look for the outcome for
Right.
our action.
Right. This is, of course, very delicate and complicated issue. But rather than, before even we ask about the outcome, we should ask about the reasons for this. It is very unfortunate that this is the only occupation or colonization that is left in the world. And neither the Israeli nor the international community want to come to conclusion that this is not sustainable, that this cannot continue taking the lands and establishing settlements and pushing people further and further into that big, large prison called Gaza today, where millions of people live in that small part and then surrounded and besieged all the time. I think first of all, people who are occupied, they have the right to defend themselves. The Americans, when they were occupied by the British, they did not sit idle. They fought back and they resisted. And that's not Islamic law, that's international law. I mean, nobody even questioned that. But I think what is happening now, it is making it clear that the same conclusion that every colonizations or occupation reached before, that the price of keeping occupation is higher than the price of giving people their independence and leave them alone. We're getting there. It's a lot of losses, and it's endless war. It's not going to end. Even if it does not happen this time, it's not going to end, because I'm not sure when the Israeli will realize that at least those settlements, let's not talk about anything more than what the international law is saying, which is the 67 borders. Those settlements that were acquired or stolen after the 67 war, they are not worth defending. You put a small number of people in a land that you steal from its own people, and then you put them then, and then you have the whole army to defend them. So until when this is going to continue? So that's, I think what we are seeing is that probably that's what France has reached before in North Africa and in other African countries. That's what UK, Britain has reached before, that conclusion, that these occupation will reach a point, colonization, that its cost makes it not worth it. And I'm sure that you probably will see even a movement, even among the Israelis, that why we should be doing this? Why should we protecting few settlements and paying this heavy price for it? And so you cannot tell Palestinians that to avoid conflict, you have to accept anything that is imposed on you. That whatever they impose on you, you accept it. Settlements are not only illegitimate, even from principle, but also illegal internationally. I mean, even United States on paper does not recognize settlements, does not accept them, does not reject those settlements. And if you think about it, the whole fighting is about the settlements that are around Gaza.
Around Gaza, not in Gaza. Israel pull out exactly of Gaza. It's no any settlement in Gaza Strip. The Israeli smart people, they are not idiot. They pull all the settlement out of Gaza, and the Palestinian attacking the settlement outside Gaza. This creates a problem for the Palestinian issue.
But the Gaza people are not living any normal life.
I understand that, but the same thing in Syria and Idlib. We have 6 million people live in small area. This is not specialty for Gaza, It's.
I'm not talking about small area. I'm talking about the sanctions and the what do you call the besieging and Gaza for so long. I mean, people have
But the standard of living in Gaza Strip, it's better than most of the Arab world. The Gazian people, they live inside Gaza better than in Syria or Lebanon or in Jordan even.
And I'm not sure.
I don't think so, brother. I'm not sure that.
I'm not sure about that, but what I'm saying, brother Abu Abdullah, is there is even all the Arab countries, including the Palestinian, at certain point accepted that deal of going back to the 67 border and eliminate the settlements in the West Bank and eliminate all the settlements that are after that. Who rejected that? And not only rejected, but they keep establishing more settlements.
Yeah, but not in Gaza, this is the problem.
It's one cause. I mean, it's one cause. You cannot divide it. I mean, the Palestinian cause it's one cause. I mean, whom to blame? That even the Arab even the Arab country, even the Arab country at a certain point in time, they put that on the table, that we're willing to go even to the 67 borders and the international whatever rules or law that, and leave these people so that they can have a decent or reasonable country. But you cannot, I mean, if you look at the map, it's amazing. It's settlements everywhere, to the point that you cannot have a state in the West Bank, period. Cannot be. And you cannot tell people that because you are in Gaza, you should only mind only the issues in Gaza. It's a one problem. The other thing is why this transgression against the Aqsa Mosque that keep happening. Why provocation? I mean, there is a situation that is very tense by nature. It's very tense because of the roots, because of the occupations and settlement, etc. Why allowing people every now and then to go and provoke? This is a very sacred place for Muslims all over the world. And then you keep allowing those extremists, extremists to go to the mosque and then to do whatever they want. Why? I mean, it's not, the tension is already there. The situation is tense, and it does not need those kind of provocations that keep happening all the time.
I think, Doctor, they are doing that on purpose to apply so they can finish the job.
True?
Right? They are doing this in Al-Aqsa Mosque because they know the Arab, they will react. And after this reaction, the Israeli, they will do something
Hey,
to win.
But you cannot blame people for reacting if you keep provoking them.
But you always ask, you always telling us about we have to see the outcome.
I know where you're coming from, brother Abdullah. I know where you're coming from. I know that this has happening before already. I don't know how many Palestinians died after this has started. So, and how many buildings were destroyed. I know that. I mean, I know that this is not gonna solve the problem.
Okay.
This is
my point.
No, it's a cycle. But again, if you either, and I think that either people have to resolve the problem from the roots, which is since the Palestinians and the Arabs accepted that what they did not accept before, and they didn't think it's fair, but they accepted it. Either solve the problem from the roots, or at least no more provocation. But we can't keep the problem there, adding settlements every now and then. Settlement did not stop. Adding settlements and provocation, and then say why these people react. So that's what is keeping this vicious cycle that is going nowhere. And you can see in 2 days, in less than 2 days, how many casualties and how much destruction, and still it's still in the beginning. So it's not going to solve it. I'm sure this is not, but that's what every country in the history have done when they are occupied. People, you cannot blame them. Those who went out to the mountains to fight against the French occupation in North Africa, they were told that you're going nowhere, that you have nowhere to, or no way you can match the power of it. But people cannot accept occupation. This is the only colonization that remained in the world. I mean, especially after the South Africa problem was to some extent resolved, that's the only thing that is left.
Yeah, but the difference in Palestine, we have right now 6 million Jewish people. They live there. Third generation. They have no country to go back to. When we are telling Israeli boy right now, 18 years old, to go back home, where he can go home?
It's not back home.
Grandfather home.
We're not talking about.
We have to find solution for these two people to live together, because these people, after 75 years, after 100 years, where they want to go?
But there are two solutions on the table that the Israelis are refusing. The one which is the 67 border, and the other which is the bilingual or by whatever national state, whatever they call it, which is that, and they're refusing both. They're refusing both.
They have the power.
Yeah, they're refusing. Yes, brother.
They're refusing to consider you as a human being, equal human being, and they want to control everything.
What is called the other options? Anybody know what is? They call it by
one state solution or something.
One state, so something like this.
Yeah, I mean, to live in a democratic state and have election and give everybody equal rights.
But they call it by something, by not language.
I think it is two-state solution.
No, that's the first option. That's the first option. Two-state solution. But there is another option that is.
Muammar al-Qaddafi is Ratin.
I mean, that's a good solution. You know, just to answer, if you want to listen, I think Brother Muhammad wants to talk, but I just have a brief comment here. The best people to talk about this is some Jewish people or Israeli people who actually start, after studying the issue, start talking against their country, against the occupation, against the apartheid system, against the oppression in Palestine. There is somebody called Miku Peled. Listen to him. I met him several times, and he has books.
I am talking right now about Gaza people. I am talking about the people.
Yeah, the same thing. It's the same thing. You know, in Gaza, living in Gaza is the worst. It's like an open prison. There is no jobs, no money, no electricity, no water. Life there is really a continuous challenge every day. You know, when I visited this time in the summer, visited back home, not Gaza, I live in West Bank, which is much better than the situation there is much. But every time it's like a challenge. When my kids go to buy stuff from the market, I would be scared if some settlers or Jewish army come and start killing, because that happened. One kid was in a car with few other people. He was killed. Just one guard. I mean, I see soldiers and settlers ready to kill, sitting or standing in the street. And if any wrong movement, you just move your hand or something, you might be exposed to their fire. So life there is a continuous challenge. It's just it's you're living by chance there. So it's not normal situations. Also, there's streets for only the settlers. Streets we cannot use as Arabs there. There is okay. This settlement actually, they every year I go there, or every time I go there, I see them becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. They become big cities now. Our area, the Arab area, the Palestinian area, is not allowed to become bigger. Your land is limited, your service is limited, everything is limited for you. Even water, you know, water, you cannot have water running in the pipes in this utility coming to your house every day. They only, you are allowed maybe 2 days or 3 days. Then you have to buy water, to bring a big tank and fill your tanks. Life there is really a big challenge. I mean,
That's in the
it's
West
really
Bank.
described in the
And
West
that's
Bank, which is
yeah.
much better than Gaza. Yeah.
Okay, جزاكم الله كل خير.
وإياكم إن شاء الله.
Okay. Brother Muhammad, I think you start talking.
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم
Alaikum
السلام
salam.
ورحمة الله وبركاته.
This talk is not for Abu Abdullah, because I know who is Abu Abdullah, and I hope that he wasn't very serious about his question about Gaza and the comparison of the living in Gaza. I know what you mean. I think the other way that we should talk about Gaza is we should say a place, an open jail under the siege for how many tens of years now? It's going to be over 15 years. And they have the capabilities to do what they do. And they raised the bar so far that we had no integrity before. It's like we lost a lot of our integrity, a lot of our respect. And the most important, brothers, is that the Palestinian cause was deleted from the map. There was nobody talking about the Palestinian cause, regardless to what you want to tell me. The Israelis, even the last talk in the United Nations, if you looked at the map that Netanyahu had in his hand, he even took the West Bank away from there. He covered it, and he has Israel from the Golan Heights to the Sinai to probably middle of Jordan. We have seen those maps about including Jordan as part of Israel as well. So having said that, we should look at this as a miracle for the people in Gaza and what they have done. It is a miracle for the Palestinian cause. It is a miracle for the Arab world and the Muslim world that there is such a small group of people who's fighting for this, who's doing something at least to bring that cause back on the map and back into the political table. So having said that, I'm going to go to Brother Abdullah's notes. And again, I know this is not, it's like I know who's Brother Abdullah, Abu Abdullah, and I know where he's coming from. But if we go back and we just think about this, Syria was better before any of this happened. I can say this because the Syrians lived. But that doesn't mean that you should say that the Syrians should not have a revolution to change the regime. I like that the Syrians and millions of Syrians have left the country because of what the country is going through. No, nobody even in the world likes that. But you know something? I still think that they were a lot better if they stayed silent. If they realize that what they're going through is influenced from outsiders, influenced and controlled from outside to control the resources in Syria. The situation in Palestine is a lot worse than what you think about, Abdullah. And it's a lot worse than what the world is thinking, and it's a lot worse than what the Palestinian Authority and even what we see in Hamas. There is no, if you look at the, if you go back with during the Trump administration, and you look at the maps that they were looking at, and the Palestinians refused to get that. It's like if the Palestinians agreed, the PLO, not the Palestinians, the PLO, because the PLO during the time was desperate to do nothing, and they had nothing, and this was their way to get somewhere and to get back on the map. When they agreed to have, when the PLO and Arafat and all of that show that we saw in the White House agreed in the 22% of the Palestinian areas and the West Bank, there is none of that left. Look at the map. You see small isolated areas, small villages. It's like the village that the brother is talking about, where he's coming from, Ain Yabrud and Deir Riwan and all of these. These are the way that you see the walls surrounding the West Bank and isolating the West Bank from the Israeli areas. There is walls and roads isolating villages and towns from each other. Economically, the situation is very bad. The situation was going nowhere. And at least this, after 50 years, somebody showed that we can resist and we can do something. And that by itself, it's a gain in the map. From desperation and from losing hope, you put the hope back in people and make them resist for what's happening about Abdullah. And that is really important for us. That was very important. So this is part one, and the part two is like what was happening in Al-Aqsa is gonna take it's like just to remind everybody what happened in Hebron and in the Masjid al-Ibrahimi and the division of Masjid Ibrahimi. That was the plan for the Aqsa, and they've been trying that for the longest time. And none of the Muslims, none of the Arabs, and nobody, and even the Palestinian Authority have done nothing about it. The Jerusalem people and Muslims from around the 48 areas are the ones who's been filling up the mosque, especially on Fridays, and staying there. And you have seen the women's pictures and what the military and the police have done to them, because they just stayed to protect the mosque from the settlers that come in and out from there. Nobody was doing anything. And the response from Gaza is to protect the mosque and the Aqsa Mosque. And the Aqsa Mosque is not any building. It's a surah on the Quran. It's an ayat al-Isra wal-Miraj. It's everything. It's like it's part of the Muslim religion. And if we don't have to move ourselves and our minds and think clearly about this, it's like why we're sitting even here if we don't think about it as part of our religion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for taking this long, but they are the ones who turned this into a religious war, and not us. All of this time, we looked at it as maybe we can compromise and live and coexist. But obviously, it wasn't happening, and it's never gonna. They're never gonna agree on it. They're looking for us to continue to be slaves and work for their economy, and build more settlements for them and more roads. And just if we don't like it, just leave. And thank you. I'm sorry.
Jazakallah khair. And I want to add just one point that yes, it is vicious cycle, and it's going nowhere. But if you think about it, who is responsible for this? I mean, if you foil or you make the peace path or the peace option, you make it fail, you strengthen the argument of those who say only resistance will work. And resistance, what Hamas will do, will strengthen the argument of the extremists in Israel. And that's not going to end. This is not going to end because basically everybody, what they're doing, and I'm not saying about right or wrong now, we're saying about whatever it is being done, you strengthen the argument of the other. If that peace deal was accepted and implemented, we probably could have avoided all of this. But blocking the road of peace opened this door. Now we are in a vicious cycle with no end in sight, because for example, what is happening now will strengthen the argument of the extremists in Israel and vice versa. And then the retaliation and blocking the peace will make the argument of people who say only resistance will do it, will make that argument stronger. And civilians are paying the price. There is a lot of destruction, and there is no end in sight. And the world is not doing anything. I mean, United States in particular could play a much better role in breaking this vicious cycle. This blind support, this one-sided approach is not leading anywhere. There is no more sponsor for the peace process. There is no more someone who, I don't want to say stay at the same distance from both sides, but at least be a little bit fair. You can't be only one-sided, because this way you make yourself irrelevant. But I think the United States, among probably more than anybody else, has a lot of cards it can play. It can put pressure on Israel. It can put even pressure on the Palestinians through some Arab countries, if it chooses to play the role of somebody who is fair and someone who is serious about breaking this vicious cycle. Probably the United States, more than anybody else, has the tools and the ability to do that, and it's not doing it. Unfortunately, it gets involved in domestic politics and in election cycles, and it's complicating the issue. We don't see any more leadership. The days of Jimmy Carter, for example, that kind of leadership, and it's not there anymore. You have people who really nowadays, presidents and candidates who just want to get elected or want to stay in office by any means, and by catering to stronger lobbyists or stronger lobby, and that's not it is very unfortunate that cycle is endless, and situation is not sustainable. We're gonna see rounds like this all the time, regardless of from where it is initiated, but these rounds are not gonna end, and nobody in the world is doing anything serious to stop it.
You just mentioned Jimmy Carter. He wrote a book, Peace in the Holy Land. And that book, I think I bought it, but I can't find it now. But I mean, he was suggesting, or it's not only him, the peace to have two-state solutions, a state for Israeli in the 1948, and for the Palestinians, Israel forces will withdraw, and the settlements will withdraw from 1968, and you will have 67, I mean, and you will have two states, and every state has its own borders, own security, everything. But Israel, every time they refuse to do that. And they start attacking Jimmy Carter. They don't like him anymore, because actually he went with, he attended the first election where after Oslo's agreement. He went there and he attended the election, and he said the election was really democratic. Anyway, but then they promised to give something, but then they start to change their promise. They took back everything they supposed to give, and this is what happened. Their settlements keep growing and growing, and Palestinian life they have become harder and harder. They close universities, they stop schools, they take lands, they even our trees, all of trees, they will cut them and destroy them, destroy farms. You cannot have farms because you have no water. Life there. I mean, if they give some, as you mentioned, if the American policy, and American, governor, United States governor or the president or administration do something, because some of them were like George Bush, the father. He was trying to do something, but then he changed, and Clinton came and did nothing, and same thing with Obama and everybody else. So if the American policy do something, I think they have some kind of responsibility here to stop the aggression.
Yeah, even Bush, the father, kept at least some momentum. Clinton kept some momentum and then died completely. After that, there is nothing. There is no initiative. There is no some sort of fair politics, or some sort of putting pressure, and some sort of leading things. I mean, the United States is no longer leading. I mean, and then with the recent trend towards hands-off Middle East, and focus on China, or focus on other, and the war, the war on Ukraine, it's making things much worse. But nowadays, there is no true leadership exercised by United States in this matter, and that's complicating things.
I think the other way around, Dr. Suhail. I think by doing nothing, they are doing a lot. They are changing the fact on the ground. This is what you're saying, the settlement will be big and big and big. After 10 years, we will have no Palestinian land to talk about. This is what they are doing.
And that's bad. And that's bad. That's bad.
And you cannot blame the people who resist.
Yeah, that's
I
bad.
am not blaming the people. We are asking about the outcome of the incident. This is my question. This is all my question. What is the outcome for Palestinian people?
We're not disagreeing that this is going nowhere. It's not going to solve the problem, but it's a vicious cycle, and there is no end in sight. And that's why in the second part of the discussion, we'll turn our attention to United States, because even the Palestinians at certain point in time, they were looking for the United States to do something or to play a role, and they were ready to accept things that are fair, reasonable deal. And the United States was even much strongly opposing settlements before than now. Now it's almost there is a green light. But at certain point in time, the United States policy was very adamant about refusing and opposing settlements. That's not the case anymore. They don't even talk about it now.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Suhail, and I think we'll see you next Sunday, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you, everybody. Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah.